I said this online, another camp began immediately. It was a joint exercise with civilians, which included military men from the Minot Air Force Base. And that joint exercise took place in Minnesota at Camp Ripley. And that ran just for a couple of days until August 27th. And that was known as Operation Valhalla. Okay, random 3-day exercise with civilians. And I was wondering if the French legionnaires that were in California maybe jumped right into activities going on with these civilians at Camp Ripley. But I typoed on X and I wrote Camp Riley, okay? So I wrote, it's not a coincidence that the French legionnaires were in the United States training with our Marines for 3 weeks. And when those 3 weeks ended in California, another military training exercise began alongside civilians at Camp Riley in Minnesota. Should have said Ripley. Now, you will recall, for those of you who are following the Becoming Brigitte series, that the preferred Macron response is to never address the substance of the claims, but to instead focus on minor details that somebody may get wrong. That's how they've gone after every journalist who has covered the fact that Brigitte Macron was born a male, right? Oopsies, you messed up on this one detail, and now we're going to sue you for defamation. But not, of course, the substance, which is like, hey, you lived as a man for a very long time, and the military won't release your file, and we don't know what you were doing in the military, as Jean-Michel Trogno. So me making a spelling error was the perfect way for them to attack the broader story, right? The larger story here being, hey, the French legionnaires might have been on the ground during Charlie Kirk's assassination. So what happened is the minister of the Armed Forces issued the following statement in France, and I'm going to quote this for you. Quote, Tyler Robinson was never part of the French Foreign Legion. If he did not serve in an American military unit, he could not have trained with the French Foreign Legion. End quote. Well, that's quite a way to dance around things. And Charlie Kirk says, I see what you did there. You just missed the fact that we don't think Tyler Robinson did. So you're just issuing a statement. This is bogus. Tyler Robinson never trained in the French Foreign Legion. Do you mind answering yes or no if anybody who trained with the French Foreign Legion was on the ground on September 10th at Utah Valley University? And we are asking that explicit question because one of the strangest things is that the UVU students who attended said that they felt like they didn't recognize anybody that was there. It was weird. It was very strange that they advertised for this event really late in the day. And then suddenly we see a bunch of adults and people that they don't recognize at this event. And then afterwards, the national media moves to, it looks like they're almost trying not to interview any UVU students, right? They're interviewing everybody around. You got all these adults who were there, but mysteriously the UVU students who had some interesting tidbits about what was weird that day just don't flood into the mainstream like we expected them to. Can you answer that question? Yes or no? That seems tricky when it comes to the French government. Yes or no questions are not their thing. Elsewhere in the article, and this is France 24 that reported this, it tells us that, quote, the Ministry of the Armed Forces confirms that a training exercise by the 2nd Foreign Infantry Regiment, a unit of the French Foreign Legion, did indeed take place in California from August 2nd to the 25th, as reported by Candace Owens. However, the exercise announced on the ministry's website and the regiment's Facebook page was not clandestine operation. The Ministry of the Armed Forces formally denies that another Foreign Legion training exercise took place at a supposed Camp Riley in Minnesota after the conclusion of the California exercise, and for good reason, because no Camp Riley exists in Minnesota. As Andy Parrish, the former chief of staff to the Republican state representative, pointed out on X. Oh, there is, however, a Camp Ripley, they go on, but this inaccuracy speaks volumes about the credibility of Candace Owens' alleged source. So that's how they're debunking it. A typo. I put Riley, not Ripley, and they can now confirm that the French Legion did not take part in any exercise at Camp Riley because it doesn't exist, and Candace Owens is stupid, and so now you should just assume that everything else source said is debunked. This is what you call a non-debunking debunk, a Snopes level debunking over a typo, okay? And I guess my other allegations should not be answered or even explored. Now, I should mention also that after that civilian military exercise ended at Camp Ripley on the 27th, another joint military operation began from August 29th through to September 10th, the day that Charlie was shot. And that was known as Operation Bright Star, and that took place in Cairo, Egypt. Now, it is a biennial joint military operation. It's co-hosted by the United States and Egypt to enhance regional security and to strengthen military partnerships. I just don't love the timing of all of these things. I just don't love France and Egypt and the United States together for the whole month leading up to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So I'm going to speculate until we get some answers, some straight yes or no answers from the White House, from the Élysée Palace, or from the French security forces. Now, as it pertains to the French Legion, something else that's kind of interesting is that they basically gutted and replaced about half of their leadership in mid-August. Check out this article published on August 20th. In 2025, a change of command took place across 6 regiments. Now, we researched, and look, I'm not a military buff, but we found that they have 12 regiments that are known of, and you're telling me that they gutted leadership of 6? They put in 6 new commanders? Again, I just don't love the timing of all of this. Initially, the idea of French involvement in Charlie's assassination would not have been on my radar, okay? Having them at UVU would not have been on my radar at all until we learned about that weird hangar lease in Delaware when we were trying to track the Egyptian plane, SUBTT, our yellow plane, which departed on the morning of Charlie Kirk's assassination from Provo, went over to Wilmington, Delaware. We learned that regarding that hangar, Satis, which is a French company, injected $1.5 million ostensibly to paint planes, okay, in Wilmington, Delaware. A lease that is way too short for that, whatever. And they sign off on that the very week that I get sent this cease and desist, despite the fact that I hadn't been speaking about Brigitte. It was just weird, coincidental timing. And it could be a coincidence, but I'm going to now test your resolve at home regarding French coincidences, because for me, it's a little too much is what I'll say, okay? So we learned from a source that a foreign dignitary was escorted, right, from that hangar to 920 North King Street in Wilmington, Delaware, a place that we learned and confirmed had 3 federal agencies working together in one building. The internet can try to debunk that. They can't, okay? The feds are not going to debunk that because it's true. And then we learned that it is also a place which houses the attorneys that are filing my paperwork in the Brigitte lawsuit. I explained this. Delaware has a particular legal stipulation that even if you have your own lawyers, you have to find lawyers that will file the paperwork in your lawsuit, okay? The rules on that vary state by state. We then learned that Brigitte's lawyers in my lawsuit are directly across the street from that firm, okay? Confirmed. We're just warming up, though, because the person that leaked that information about the dignitary being escorted, remember, that person never insinuated that the dignitary was French. But then, after people on the internet pretended that he or she was lying about that information, they decided to conduct further investigation. They watched the episode, and a light bulb goes off in their head because we're talking about Satis being French-owned, and the person decided to follow up and explain to us that France has effectively been running the streets in Wilmington, Delaware since like before the Revolutionary War, okay? Let's just start with a very basic history recap from this person's email. It all checks out. We don't need to get too deep in here regarding Wilmington, Delaware. He or she writes, a short version of the history, which is all verifiable, is that North French Street is actually the northern stretch of the original French Street. Wilmington laid out the original French Street in the early 1700s as Willing Street in Thomas Willing's grid. In the 1790s, a large cluster of French-speaking refugees, many of which were fleeing Haiti and the French revolutions, settled along it, and the nickname French Street took over. This street ran all the way from the Christina River up through town and became a main hub for travel and business. Wilmington is more French than people would initially assume, and it's easy to see this once you look at its history. The north tag of North French Street is a later addressing convention for blocks north of downtown. So that's just a back up there, okay? Now, again, we're going to have to go through this class very quickly. America, the whole idea of what we learn in class about, the Revolutionary War, and we were fighting because, we didn't, the monarchy. Okay, England was not even under a monarchy at that time, okay? And also, I have learned in recent years that really the whole history of America is like warring factions of Freemasons. That's the reality. Warring factions of Freemasons competing for American territory. Now we're going to get into the substance of his email. He begins with something that is speculation and I'm not going to get too deep into, but essentially he says that across from 920 King, there is a red crane, and he's able to confirm that the French are absolutely involved in this somehow. I found direct U.S.-French alignment near 920 North King Street using structural aviation markers, financial lineage, corporate fronts, and historical French corridors. Now, he shows us that this is across from 920 North King, and it starts with a huge construction site. There's a huge construction site right across from there. And there's a long red crane that he points out. And I'm going to show you that crane right now because this person sent videos, because LOL to anybody who thought that we were being, that actually, I love it because it pissed him off. And now he's really on the ground here. You can see that crane up there. And that's just a reference point to what he's speaking about so that you can follow along here. That crane is situated on 1100 North King Street. Let's bring up the map here so you can see what's going on here, okay? What I found on 1100 1100 North King Street is big. The actual building is called the Brace Bridge Complex. It spans over 1 million square feet. It seems it was originally built for the Maryland Bank as their bank headquarters from 1995 until 2006 when Bank of America acquired it. But in 2018, remember that's going to be the year that Macron comes to power, Bank of America pulled out of a few of the buildings and they left it completely empty. Here is an article showing you that that is true and that Bank of America did in fact pull out of that building. It leaves the Wilmington office space empty. He or she goes on to write, so you might be wondering what happened after it was left vacant. Well, in 2024, legislation was passed which would provide financial support to the Longwood Foundation, a philanthropic nonprofit that was founded by Pierre S. DuPont to make it function as a quote-unquote educational center. There's just one problem with that. Pierre S. DuPont was a member of the French-American family DuPont, which was descended from Pierre Samuel DuPont de Nemours, excuse my terrible French, a French aristocrat. DuPont also has extreme ties to both the American and the French military. Obviously, we know that, as they are the original manufacturers of Kevlar, which has been historically regarded as the greatest way to make bulletproof armor. So now we have this prominent French family connected to this building. I think you're right to keep looking at French. People even shared concerns about what was actually happening at that building. There was a resident named Miriam Deed who said, quote, I just feel like I don't understand why we're doing this without there being more accountability. So in 2024, and we can show you that article, he's telling the truth. We're fact checking that. People were like, what's going on in this like massive, what is the accountability here with this massive complex? Okay. He goes on to say, as you can see, the complex covers 6 different buildings, all connected to both French Street. You can bring up that map, Chris, whenever, because I'm just going to keep speaking. All connected to both French Street and King Street. Okay. Now, people on X, he goes on, who were trying to pretend that this was some prank, said the FBI is actually at 500 Delaware Avenue, right? And 500 Delaware Avenue is a couple of blocks over. We can show you that on the map as well. Can you pull up 500 North Delaware? And that is also somehow owned by France. Why is the FBI in that building? Who knows? But also having a division inside of this building is true. He says that 500 North Delaware Avenue is a cover because guess what that building is? It's another bank center. This time, it's the Wilmington Savings Fund Society. In 1990, nearly all of Lower Delaware branches of WSFS were sold to Wilmington Trust, which was founded by T. Coleman DuPont, the French-American then president of DuPont, to manage the growing fortune of the French-American DuPont family. And guess where the Wilmington Trust is actually located? It's located at 1100 North Market Street, the building that is right next to 1100 North King Street, and both are on Rodney Square. So again, we're going back to that Rodney Square. Everything is French that's happening on Rodney Square. So they were using another bank as a cover. Doesn't actually disprove anything at all. What you'll also find if you keep researching is that a law firm, MG&M, moved to 500 Delaware Avenue just a few months before Charlie was assassinated. Now, that could be a coincidence, but MG&M has many employees that are either fluent in French or are connected to France altogether. The FBI apparently has Suite 300, and MGM has Suite 200, which I believe is exactly right below where the FBI says that they are. Okay? Now, he gets back into the crane location, right? Because there seems to be no public record of what the actual construction project is that is happening online, except for the fact that apparently a global biopharmaceutical company called Insight owns it, okay? If they're using this construction site, it seems to me that they're doing it to buy time, because I actually know they're using it to buy time because they claim that it's construction in this article. On May 2024, they say that construction is expected to take about a year. Okay, well, it's been over a year. It's been about 2 years. And by the looks of it, the entire top of that building being a skeleton tells me that it's probably going to be a few years after that as well. This is clearly not taking about a year. Also, guess who the longtime CEO of that biopharmaceutical company Insight was? Hervé Hopno. And guess what? He is also French. He's not just French, but he is a French national. He seems to have just exited as the CEO, but he is still running the company under the role of advisor to the CEO. He is directly responsible for this construction at Bracebridge, and he was the one that finalized the deal. I find it very strange how he ran this company for more than a decade. Then for some reason, just a few months before Charlie's death, he decides to switch roles and to start laying low. Now, I'm not saying he's directly tied to anything. I'm just saying that these are all verifiable coincidences. Insight, that's the biopharmaceutical company that he runs, is also plugged directly into the federal medical supply chains, which include our VA systems that interface with military healthcare infrastructure. Okay. So to pull us all together, we have an entire French street that is connected to 920 North King Street, the aircraft hangar and its company Satis, which is French aligned, connected to 920 North King Street, DuPont, the French aligned, connected to 1100 North King Street, the biopharmaceutical company Insight, which is also French aligned, connected to 1100 North King Street, DuPont, which is connected to 1100 North Market Street. And then we have 1100 North King Street itself, which is connected to 920 North King Street. And we have my lawyers and we have Brigitte lawyers. I am not loving this, okay? I'm just not loving the fact that I get a call from the federal government asking me to stop speaking about Brigitte. And I think that it's kind of a funny story that'll one day be in my autobiography. Truly, that was my thought. Like, it's funny that we're on the phone talking about, like, the French, why is he married to somebody born a male? And I clearly was not thinking that there was maybe sort of an implicit threat involved here, like literally just stop speaking about her. And I really do wish, going back, that they had tried honesty, right? They had said, hey, Brigitte might be an asset to the Mossad, which is what we had received a tip regarding, that we were working on, confirming during Becoming Brigitte season 2. I wish they had been more explicit and said, we really actually need you to shut up about this forever. And I probably would have done it if they were just honest and said it's a national security issue. But instead they went with Emmanuel Macron's feelings are hurt, which I thought was LOL funny, and obviously wanted to continue to speak about this. I don't even know what to make of this other than, and you can tell me if you agree, I feel Like I was set up by the federal government in terms of this lawsuit. Like this wasn't just Brigitte and Emmanuel sitting down making a mistake by filing this national lawsuit, but rather federal agencies which may have been colluding and speaking to one another about how to put an end to my research into who Brigitte was, because all of these governments are implicated. And by all of them, I mean France, the United States, and Israel, implicated in whatever the hell Jean-Michel Trogno was up to during the missing years of his life when he was in the military and on its surface in America. Because Brigitte says he was in America. We know Brigitte was in America in the 60s, at least for the moon landing. No details provided about what Brigitte was doing when he experienced the moon landing with Americans. I'm not getting the feeling that Jean-Michel Trogno was just chilling at his aunt's house, okay? That was a psychological operation. I'm pretty convinced that Brigitte Macron has been involved on the basis of my lawsuit and the mentioning of MK Ultra 18 times absurdly in my lawsuit, even though all we said was, hey, Brigitte's fake birthday happens to be the same day as the MK Ultra program. I'm thinking there might be something there. Like Brigitte is involved in the military file. Jean-Michel Trogno is involved in psychological operations, okay? And I should also mention to you that the second largest shareholder for Satis is Israel. Yeah, it's an Israeli firm based in Tel Aviv called Ace Partners. They are explicit. They only invest in companies and organizations that benefit Israel. That's like on their website. This is why we exist. Our mission with Ace is clear: to identify, invest in, and support the most promising startups that will shape the future of aerospace and defense technology. So it's military. And we focus predominantly on companies in their Series A and B funding rounds across aerospace and defense verticals. Our investments are global with a specific focus on Israel. So I'm not being anti-Semitic. That's what Ace Partners does. They are the second largest shareholder to Satis. Why is Israel interested in this hangar in Wilmington, Delaware? You guys? And in case you don't think that we've really hit peak, what the hell is going on? Literally, what from the gates of hell is Brigitte Macron, okay? In case you're not there yet, let me tell you that just to make myself feel good, I said, let me just confirm where Brigitte Macron was on 9/10. That feels like a very easy thing to do. Like, yeah, this is the first lady, man of France. It's a pretty busy season everywhere. We're talking early September. It's back to school. There's a lot going on. And I was very comforted to see that Brigitte Macron had opened Paris Design Week. Makes sense, right? Opened Paris Design Week on, I believe, September 4th. Very public, gets kind of photographed with the culture, the Ministry of Culture lady, right? The head of their Ministry of Culture and actual lady. And then Brigitte Macron gets photographed on 9/4 with Zelensky. Zelensky's coming in for a big interstate meeting. And Brigitte Macron sees to it that he's also photographed with Saudi Arabia at some orchestra that Saudi Arabia is putting on. And what's interesting is that it's daytime when that photograph happens. And then after that, Brigitte just falls off a cliff for 6 days. Brigitte's just gone for 6 days. And I would really like to know where Brigitte Macron was at for those 6 days, okay? I need to confirm that. I need internet sleuths like you have never seen before. Where was Brigitte Macron on the dates that Egyptian plane was from 9/4 through to 9/11? Where was Brigitte Macron? I would just like to know. I need to know where Brigitte Macron was, and I think an answer to that question is due. It would just comfort me to know. So I'm asking you guys for help determining the answer to that. I could go on, by the way. Wilmington, Delaware, also being the hub for MK Ultra is especially sweet. The email that we got, that it's also the hub for transgenderism in America. Like, who knew that? I certainly didn't. Our first ever trans congressman, you guys. Guess where? Wilmington, Delaware, that congressional district. A bunch of trans surgeries for children, drag time, story hour. Like, they're kind of leading America in the trans stuff. I could go on and on and on about what goes on in Wilmington, Delaware, but I think that's probably enough for right now. So let's take a brief break and we'll come back. All right, you guys, when they double down on abortion, we have to double down on supporting life. Through our partnership with Preborn, we can help save babies and support mothers that are in need. Because every day, Preborn's clinics rescue hundreds of babies, because when a mother sees her baby on an ultrasound and hears that tiny heartbeat, her chance of choosing life doubles. And now, thanks to a generous match, your gift will also be doubled. That means twice as many ultrasounds, twice as many lives saved, and twice as many mothers that are given hope with diapers, car seats, counseling, and care for up to 2 years. So if you've heard about Preborn before and have not yet taken action, there is no better time than right now. Their work is some of the most important work to help heal our country. One ultrasound is just $28, but you can obviously give 10 times that amount if you're capable of that. Head to preborn.com/Candace to give today. That's preborn.com/Candace. Also, I'm excited to share with you guys C15 from the company Fatty 15. That is the first emerging essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. It's an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health, wellness, and health aging. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells, and it's a key healthy aging nutrient, which helps slow biological aging at the cellular level. When our cells do not have enough of C15, they become fragile and they age faster. Well, thankfully, Fatty 15 repairs age-related damage to cells, protects them from future breakdown, and it activates pathways in the body that help regulate our sleep, our cognitive health, and natural repair mechanisms. Fatty 15 is science-backed. It's award-winning. It's patented, 100% pure C15 supplement. It's free of flavors, allergens, preservatives, and it's also vegan-friendly. Fatty 15 has 3 times more cellular benefits than omega-3 or fish oil. It comes in gorgeous reusable glass bamboo jars, and refills are shipped directly to your front door. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription, their starter kit, by going to fatty15.com/Candace and using code Candace at checkout. Again, that's fatty15.com/Candace and use promo code Candace at checkout. I mean, I actually decided I am going to read this because we're just going in. And this is another tip not related to the person whose email that I just read that made me aware that Wilmington, Delaware is just very French. This person writes to me, hey, you should also know that area is transgendered central. There are 5 different Nemours children hospital centers nearby. Yes, they perform transgender surgeries, or yes, they do transgender rather. Nemours children's hospitals are named for Nemours, France, the home of the DuPont family. Hotel DuPont is obviously walking distance from 920 King. First and Central Presbyterian Church is an LGBTQ church that is across from that hotel. Cab Calloway School is a short 10-minute drive, and this is where our transgendered Congressman McBride graduated from. Theater is a 5-minute walk. They feature transgendered productions with a drag show at least every month. The Queen is an 8-minute walk. They are advertising Disney drag brunches. 20 minutes back toward the airport, you will find a multitude of plastic surgeons. And then they list them. Wilmington University is nearby, where they offer LGBTQ programs for kids. And Transition Delaware LLC, which offers counseling and etc., has 2 locations. And then they list them. So it's a lot of transgenderism happening in that area, which is of interest to me. I just started a poll, by the way. We are live on YouTube. I asked a very simple question. Do you think